Okay, so tonight, we're basically here to tell you some stories.
Yeah, some pretty unsettling ones.
Right. 3 unnerving accounts from people who experienced some really strange and frightening things while they were babysitting.
And these aren't just made-up tales, are they?
No, not at all. These come from shared sources, actual experiences. They kind of give you a glimpse into these unexpected, really chilling encounters.
It's interesting how a situation that seems so safe, so normal.
Like babysitting, yeah.
Exactly. How quickly that can just dissolve, turn into something else entirely.
Absolutely. It shows a real vulnerability. So let's get into the first one.
Okay.
This story involves a seasoned babysitter, someone who'd done this plenty of times. It was just a routine Thursday night gig, watching a 10-year-old boy named Jay.
Right, sounds standard enough. Older kid, probably pretty self-sufficient.
Exactly. She arrives, parents leave, everything seems fine. For the first couple of hours, totally normal. Jay's talkative, friendly, shows her his video games.
So they're getting along.
Yeah, seems like it. Then the shift happens. She decides to heat up some food, goes to the kitchen,
Yep.
leaves Jay in the living room. She says she was gone maybe 5 minutes, tops.
Just a very short time, nothing unusual there.
But when she comes back into the living room, Jay is different,
Different how?
just completely changed. He's quiet, withdrawn, barely responding to her, almost shy, which is totally not how he was acting before.
Wow, that's abrupt.
Super abrupt. She's really confused, obviously. Asks if he's okay. He just kind of nods, won't make eye contact. She tries not to make a big deal, thinking maybe he's tired or something, but that sudden flip, it was really unsettling.
Yeah, that sudden unexplained change in a child's behavior. Especially after they've been alone, even for a moment. That's one of the biggest red flags you can get in these situations. It strongly suggests something happened, an external influence maybe, something that scared him or told him to act differently.
Exactly. And things just stayed weird. It gets closer to bedtime, like 9:30. She tells him it's time to get ready, and he really resists. Tries to delay, acts super strange about it.
Avoiding her.
Yeah, kind of avoiding her. He finally gets into bed just before 10 p.m. So she goes downstairs, sits on the couch, just trying to process it all, like why the sudden change, what could possibly have happened in those 5 minutes.
Right, trying to make sense of it.
And while she's sitting there thinking, she hears a noise upstairs, footsteps, walking in the hallway, and then she hears a door open.
So she thinks it's Jay getting out of bed right after she put him down.
That's what she assumes. So she goes upstairs to check, but the hallway's empty. She goes to his room, opens the door, and there he is, back in bed, exactly like she left him, just lying there.
Whoa. So how did...
She has no idea. She asks him, "What were you doing?" He just looks terrified, doesn't say a word. She's completely baffled now.
Okay, that's genuinely creepy.
Yeah.
Because now she's questioning what she heard. Right. Was it him? If it was, how'd he get back so fast, so silently?
Yeah.
Or was it someone else? That confusion, that disorientation, sometimes that's part of the goal for whoever might be intruding.
It definitely threw her off. She decides, okay, maybe she misheard. She starts to leave the room, but as she's walking out, Jay mumbles something, says he needs to use the bathroom.
Okay.
She tells him fine, and he gets up and leaves the room. So now she's alone in his room for a moment.
Right.
She just takes a quick look around. Standard kid's room, nothing seems weird. But then, just as she's about to turn away, something catches her eye. Peripheral vision.
Well,
She looks towards the closet, and she sees an eye
oh my God.
looking back at her through a crack in the closet door.
That is horrifying. It just confirms it, doesn't it? That feeling of being watched is not just a feeling anymore. There's someone there, hiding, actively observing.
It froze her, just for a second. Then she pulls it together, walks out of the room, closes the door quietly behind her. She waits in the hall for Jay to come back from the bathroom.
Smart. Stay calm.
The second he's out, she just acts. Tells him, "We need to go." Rushes him quietly downstairs, gets him straight into her car, and calls 911 immediately.
Good. Got out. Called for help.
While they're waiting in the car, she asks Jay, "Did you know someone else was in the house?" But he stays totally silent, just like he'd been since she came back from the kitchen. No answer at all.
His silence there and the fear you mentioned earlier, it really suggests he knew, doesn't it? Either too scared to say anything, or maybe he was told not to. That kind of compliance under threat, you see that sometimes when a kid is caught in something terrifying.
Yeah, it seems likely. The police get there really fast. First officer goes inside and finds a man walking around upstairs.
They caught him.
They did. Described as, a 30-year-old guy a creep. And when the police questioned him, his story was just bizarre.
What did he say?
He claimed he was a friend of Jay's and that Jay had let him in to babysit.
What? That makes no sense. A friend of a 10-year-old just let in to babysit when there's already a babysitter there.
Yeah.
That's immediately suspicious. It's such a weak attempt to normalize his presence, trying to manipulate the situation.
Totally unbelievable.
Right.
And then here's another really strange part. When the parents came home, their reaction was odd.
How so?
The babysitter felt like they kind of pushed her away, didn't ask many questions about what happened, and they never followed up with her, never gave her any updates. So she was left with this really unsettling mystery. Like,
right.
Did Jay know the guy? Why did Jay act so weird? And why did the parents react like that? Just so many unanswered questions.
That parental reaction really adds another layer of unease, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Were they just in shock? Trying to cover something up? Denial? Who knows? But the whole sequence, kids' fear, the hidden intruder, that strange response from the parents, it's deeply disturbing. Leaves you wondering about what was really going on in that house.
It really does.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the second story.
All right. This one comes from a 16-year-old girl. She got a babysitting job through one of those online company things. She did mention right off that the hiring process felt a bit weird. They took her photos, put up a public bio. She felt that was kind of unusual for a younger sitter.
Yeah, that level of public visibility for a minor offering services,
Yeah.
it does raise an eyebrow, something to be cautious about.
So she gets her first booking after a few weeks. It's an overnight job. Saturday night, arrive at 10 p.m.
Oh, one night, okay.
She gets to the house, and the dad meets her. He's an older guy, maybe late 50s.
Right.
And he immediately takes her into the kitchen, sits her down, and then proceeds to just talk at her for about 25 minutes.
About what? The kid? The routine?
No, that's the weird part. He asks her question after question about her background, why she's babysitting, just personal stuff. She answers, but she's thinking, this is a long time before we even talk about the job. That's definitely off.
Yeah.
Spending all that time focused just on the babysitter, asking personal questions before even mentioning the child or the actual care. That's a big deviation from a normal handover. It feels like his priority is her, not the child.
Exactly. And while he's talking, she starts to realize she hasn't seen the daughter, hasn't even heard her. He said she was supposed to be watching a 4-year-old.
4 years old, okay.
So she finally asks, "Where is she?" And he just says, "Oh, she's asleep upstairs in her room. Says she won't need anything until the morning."
Right, convenient.
Then, really suddenly, he says he has to go. It's only like 10:25 p.m. Says he'll be back at 11 a.m. the next day, leaves her the key, and just leaves.
Wow, abrupt departure after that long talk.
Yeah, she felt totally confused, like whiplash.
That combination, the overly long personal chat followed by the hasty exit. It feels almost like he's trying to manipulate her, maybe make her feel comfortable, then just leaves her suddenly alone. Sets a strange tone.
It really did. So the first thing she does after he leaves is look around. And she realizes, oh crap, I forgot to ask the basics. Where do I sleep? Where's food? Stuff like that.
Right. Distracted by the weird conversation.
But as she starts looking around the ground floor, a much bigger worry starts creeping in. He said his daughter was 4, so she's expecting, toys, kid food in the fridge, drawings on the wall, something.
Evidence of a small child living there.
Exactly. There was nothing. Not a single toy, no kids' cups, no artwork, absolutely zero sign that a 4-year-old lived in that house.
Oh, wow. That's a huge red flag. When your gut is telling you something's off, and then you find physical evidence, or rather a complete lack of evidence backing that up, the absence of any sign of a child is screaming that something is wrong.
She knew then something was seriously off. She tried to just settle down, though, found a spot on the couch, figured she'd text the dad in the morning about food or whatever, but she couldn't sleep.
I wouldn't be able to either.
Something about the house just felt wrong. She was awake for almost 2 hours, just lying there, uneasy.
Listening.
Waiting. Yeah. And then, around 1 a.m., she hears it, a faint click. From the other side of the house, her heart just jumps. She sits bolt upright. Silence for a second. Then she hears the back door slide open. Very, very softly.
He came back. In the middle of the night, long after he was supposed to be gone.
Yeah.
And quietly. Try not to be heard.
Her heart is absolutely pounding. She gets up super quietly, goes to the hallway where she can peek towards the back door.
Yeah.
And she sees him, the dad. His back is to her, and he's trying to gently, silently close the sliding door behind him. She said that split second. Before he turned around, that was everything.
He didn't know she was awake.
No. And the second he turns and sees her standing there, She just reacts, pure instinct, turns and runs, sprints for the front door as fast as she can. She hears him rushing down the hall right behind her, yelling at her to stop. She bursts out the front door, gets in her car, slams the door, locks it, speeds away. She sees him in the rearview mirror, still yelling, banging on her car window as she tears out of there.
Wow. That fight or flight kicking in saved her. And his immediate chase, that confirms her gut feeling was dead on. His return, his intentions. They were dangerous. She wasn't supposed to see him come back. Trusting that instinct, even without knowing the exact plan, was absolutely the right move.
Running was definitely the right move, but what happened next maybe wasn't ideal. She was so shaken up, so confused. She didn't tell anyone right away.
Oh, no.
Yeah, she was worried she'd done something wrong, failed the job somehow. It was actually a month later before she finally told her parents.
A whole month.
Yeah, and they said, look, it's probably too late to report it now, but they pointed out the most telling thing, besides, him chasing her. The dad never contacted the babysitting company afterwards.
Oh, yeah. That's it right there.
Exactly. He never complained she left, never asked where she went, nothing.
Because he knew why she ran. If he were innocent, just a dad whose sitter vanished, he'd have been straight on the phone to the company demanding answers. The fact he stayed silent, that screams guilt. He knew his actions were wrong, indefensible.
Her conclusion, looking back, especially with the total lack of any sign of a child, she believes there was no daughter, and that he had some kind of sick plan for her, alone in that house all night.
Chilling. Absolutely chilling.
Okay, let's get to our third story. This one's from a parent's perspective.
Okay, different angle.
Yeah. A parent needed a last-minute sitter for their 6-year-old son. Usual person wasn't available, they had plans. So they booked a 17-year-old boy named Ben through a website. Just for a few hours, starting at 5 p.m. Profile seemed fine.
Right, using those platforms for last-minute stuff is handy, but yeah, you're relying on their vetting, which isn't always perfect.
So they scheduled Ben to arrive at 4:30 p.m., give them time to go over things before they needed to leave at 5, got their son ready, turned off video games, waiting.
Standard prep.
But 4 point comes and goes. 5 p.m. rolls around. No Ben. He hasn't shown up.
Okay, just late, or...
Well, that's what they thought at first, just frustration. But then the parent calls the website service to see what's going on.
Right, check in.
And the service tells them, Ben clocked in on the app.
What?
Yeah. According to the app, he had arrived, was supposedly already there, babysitting.
But he wasn't.
Yeah.
So he lied.
Oh, yeah.
To the service. That's not just unprofessional, that's actively deceptive. A huge red flag about his honesty right there. What was he really up to?
Exactly. The service apologizes, cancels the booking, obviously, since they can't get a replacement fast enough. So the parent has to cancel their evening plans. They're annoyed, frustrated.
Understandably.
So fast forward about an hour. It's around 6 p.m. The parent and son are just having dinner, watching a show, trying to salvage the evening, and there's a knock at the front door.
An hour later.
Yeah. Parent pauses the show, goes to the door, looks through the people, and sees a guy on the porch, car in the driveway. It's Ben. Over 2 hours late.
Wow. After lying to the company, getting the job canceled, he still shows up. Hours late. That's not just a mistake. That feels deliberate. But why?
The parent was just irritated at this point. Opens the door. Ben just says, "Hi, I'm Ben." And the parent, pretty curtly, just says, "You're over 2 hours late. Just go." And closes the door. Admits later, maybe not the politest, but they were just done with it.
Fair enough, honestly.
But then a couple minutes later, that feeling of irritation turns into something colder. The parent happens to look out a window, and Ben's car is still in the driveway.
Still there. Why?
That's what the parent thought. A cold rush, they called it. They go back to the door, look through the people again. It's dark outside now.
Okay.
At first, they don't see anything right in front of the door, but then they look down towards the bottom of the people, and they see him. Ben. Standing there, stock still, pressed flat against the door.
Oh no, like he was listening.
Like he's...
Oh, that is profoundly creepy. That's not someone making a mistake or trying to apologize. Pressing against the door, listening. That's calculated. It's boundary violating. It feels predatory, trying to figure out what's happening inside.
The parent was just in shock for a few seconds, staring. Then their son calls out, "Mom!" Voice kind of worried, and that snaps them out of it.
Thank goodness.
Immediately backs away from the door, tells their son, "Run to your room, lock the door," and calls the police right away.
Oh, good. Fast reaction.
The parent thinks Ben must have heard the 911 call inside, because the second they hang up, he starts knocking. hard, aggressively.
Oh, wow. Escalation.
Then he starts rattling the doorknob, banging on the door. Then they hear footsteps move around to a nearby window, and he starts trying to pry it open.
He's trying to get in. Okay, that confirms it. His intention wasn't innocent. He heard the call, knew time was limited, and tried to force his way in. He likely expected the child to be alone by then.
Terrifying. The parent double-checks the door lock, checks other locks, and runs to join their son in the locked bedroom. Waits for the police. Said it felt like an eternity.
I bet it did.
But the police were actually really quick, like 5 minutes. When they arrived, Ben is back in his car, just sitting there, acting totally innocent.
Of course, the switch back. Playing innocent after trying to break in. Classic denial, trying to make the victim seem crazy.
Yeah, he apparently told the police some story about how he was on time, and the parent was just nuts.
But the app check-in.
Exactly. His story fell apart fast. The parent showed the police the confirmation email, proof he was scheduled hours earlier, proof he lied about clocking in.
So what happened to him?
He lost his job with the babysitting service, for sure. But legally, not much else, because he denied everything, denied trying the door, the window.
And it's hard to prove that intent, right? Even with the email and the circumstances, if he just denies it, it becomes incredibly frustrating to get real accountability.
It really is. And the parent said the most chilling thought, the thing that really stays with them, is that if Ben had arrived on time, what he was supposed to,
They would have left.
they would have left their 6-year-old son alone with him, not knowing what his real intentions were. That uncertainty, given everything that happened, that's the truly terrifying part.
Yeah. These 3 stories, they're all different, obviously, but they share that that common thread, don't they? They really spotlight the vulnerability that's just inherent when you're trusting someone new, especially in your own home or with your child.
Definitely shows how fast things can go sideways, how quickly that trust can be broken and danger can just appear out of nowhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it demonstrates how a seemingly normal situation, something people do every day, can become genuinely terrifying in just moments.
So what do you think is the main thing to take away from hearing these?
Well, I think what really stands out across all of them is how crucial it is to pay attention. Pay attention to inconsistencies, like the house with no toys. Pay attention to sudden changes in behavior, like with Jay. And maybe most importantly, pay attention to that gut feeling. That little voice telling you something isn't right, even if you can't quite put your finger on why.
Trust your instincts.
Exactly. Vigilance, awareness, trusting those instincts. They really are vital layers of protection, especially in situations where you're inherently vulnerable.
Well, hopefully these stories have been, well, engaging, maybe a little scary, for sure, and definitely thought-provoking for you.
Food for thought, certainly.
Thank you all for listening to these accounts with us. Goodbye for now.
Goodbye.
And hey, if you found these stories compelling, please do remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel, Horror Docs. We appreciate the support.